Today I am going to present myself, Madhusmita Devi. I am serving as a assistant professor, Department of Education, Borua College, Guwahati. So I am a student of education. So it's a new subject for me, but still I am preparing my PPT on gender and culture. Hope you will enjoy it. So today I am going to present a lecture on gender and culture. So you all know that what is gender and culture. So it is a very interesting topic nowadays, and lots of discussion are going on gender and culture. So this gender and culture is an important part of our social science. So without knowing gender and culture, so it is very difficult to understand our social science. Okay, so gender and culture itself a very big subject. So under gender and culture, there are different things to discuss, but due to the limited time frame, so I am presenting my lecture, giving importance on the important elements of gender and culture. So before going to discuss gender, so we already know that what is gender. In general sense, we know that what is gender, but I am going to present the derivative meaning of gender and how the word gender comes from. Okay, so the word gender generally comes from the Anglo-Norman Middle French word genre. So it is again derived from the Latin word genus, which indicates a kind, a type, or sort. So therefore, in simple sense, we can say that gender is a kind of characteristics that pertaining to and differentiating between the masculinity and femininity. So here the word gender includes different things. So it includes the various facets like biological sex-based classifications like male and female, then intersex variations, then the social sex-based social structure, social identities, social role, etc. So there are different things in gender. So gender can be divided into two classes. Generally, we divide gender into two classes, that is boy and man, and the other is girl and woman. And to give a right place to the third gender, we introduce the gender queer. So that is also gender queer. That is the third type, and the first one, that is man and women, that is again classified as that is also known as gender binary. Okay, so first classification is gender binary, and the second one, that is the third gender, we can call it gender queer. So we all know that. So to be much more clear on the concept of gender, so we should go through the various definitions. So that is given by our different organizations, reputed organizations, then different individuals given us different definitions regarding gender. So if we have a clear concept on the gender, so we must go through the different definitions. So I would like to present the first definition, that is given by World Health Organization. So they said that gender is defined as a result of socially constructed ideas about the behavior, actions, and the roles a particular sex performs. Gender is a term used to exemplify the attributes that a society or culture constitute as masculine or feminine. So here in this definition, we observe that gender is defined in a very wide way. Okay, so here we see that there is no importance is given on the biological sex, that is the male and female, but here the main importance is given on the socially constructed behavior. That means the society will construct the gender roles. So society and culture will develop the gender roles. So therefore, here in this definition, World Health Organization gives much importance on the gender on the socially constructed behavior, not on the biological sex. So second definition, here they mentioned that according to the gender studies, so they define that the term gender refers to proposed social and cultural constructions of masculinities and femininities. In this context, gender explicitly excludes reference to biological differences to focus on cultural differences. So here also we see that in this definition also they do not give on importance on biological sex, but they give more importance on the social and cultural construction of behavior. So in this after going through these definitions, so it is clear that too much emphasis is given on the our socially and culturally constructed behavior, not on the biological sex. So in this sense, we can say that biological sex is constant. It is constant, cannot be changed. Okay, in society to society, the biological sex, that is male and female, will be the same. But the gender roles that is given by that is determined by the society and culture, it must be varied. So society to society, the gender roles may be different. So in some societies, gender roles are fixed, but in some societies they are not fixed. They are changing with the time. Okay. So in this sense, we can discuss a particular example of an island, that is Samoan Island, that is situated in southern Pacific, near southern Pacific. So Pacific Ocean. So that is situated in the middle between the Hawaii and the New Zealand. Okay. So in Samoan village, that is an island. It is a part of the large island. Okay. So in Samoan village in 1920, a report was published. So there, the people of the Samoan village, they generally have balanced gender roles. Okay, they maintain a balanced gender role. That means when the child is born, so their parents and the adult members, they do care of them. But after as they could work, so the parents and the family members do not take care of them. So the boys and girls between the age of over the age of 5 years, they took care of their younger siblings. So like this, when the baby, so he is over 9 years. He joined the boys group. And in the boys group, they do different kinds of activities like the fishing. Fishing was their main activity of that island. So they engaged in fishing. They make the baskets. They made different types of works. And the female also, when they at the age of 14 years, they also join the boys group. They have lots of freedom. So they can also enjoy the different activities of the society as well as the household activities. So they also do different types of works like fishing. They make the baskets. They also engage in the plantation, coconut plantation. So like this, gender role is not fixed in that island in 1920. So they enjoy lots of things. So they have a particular cooking. That means they engaged in cooking in outside the home, and the boys and girls, they made the cooking, and boys took the main part in cooking, and girls also helped them. So therefore, there is no fixed gender role is present in that particular island in 1920s. So, but today we see that the gender discrimination is seen in everywhere. So therefore, the gender discrimination should not be there. So we should promote the gender equality. So therefore, we should know what is gender is. So gender is the socially constructed or socially classified behavior of male and female as masculinity and femininity. So it is not determined biologically, but it is constructed socially. So it is constructed socially and it is constructed culturally. And society to society, we have different types of gender roles. So gender roles is not fixed in one society. So gender roles are determined according to the social purpose, social task, then social activity. So it is determined by the society and the culture also. It is not same as X. So some people are confused. So whether it is confused that it is male or female, but it is not the same as sex, and it is not only women also. So some people say that gender is always related to women, but it is not like this. So it is not same as sex, and it is not same as women. So another characteristics is that it is determined by the conception of task. That means what type of task you are going to present in the society or in a household also. What type of tasks you are going to present. So that depends on our gender role. So function and role attribute to man and women in society and public and private life. So therefore, gender role that a man and woman plays in the society or in public and private life, so that will determine the role of masculinity and femininity. So it is very important that we should know the importance of gender. So why gender studies are required? To know the effect of patriarchy on the man and women, we should know the gender studies. So therefore, we see that in different societies, we see that gender discrimination are there. So male members dominate the women members. So there are lots of happening we see in nowadays in our society, that women are deprived of different opportunities and life chances. So therefore, to know the patriarchy, how patriarchy harms men and women. Therefore, we need the gender studies, and to know how the gender roles are determined. So to know how the gender roles are determined in a particular society, we need to study gender studies. So gender studies may be needed to determine how the gender roles are determined in a particular society. Therefore, we need gender studies. Then gender studies also needed for determining the gender norms in a particular society. So norms are the standards that are determined by the society for different purposes. So to know the gender norms of a particular society and how they are formed and how they are determined, to know all these things, we need gender studies. Then the gender roles can be modified, and it can be upliftment for the social purpose. So therefore, how the gender roles are modified, so it is reconstructed. Gender roles are not static, so it is reconstructed according to the needs and environment of the society. So therefore, we need we need to study gender roles. So the gender studies is needed to know this modification of our gender roles. So these are some of the importance why we need gender studies. And now we'll discuss things that the gender studies focus on. Okay, so gender studies focus on what are the different functions. So first one is that gender studies always focus on the differences of interest between the man and women within the household and how they interact and express. That means we have differences in men and women in our household also, in our society also, in our workplace also. So therefore, gender studies will focus on the differences of interest of women and men, and they also take interest in how they interact with each other and what are their expressions. So that is studied by gender studies. Then gender studies also focus on the effect of convention and hierarchies on the status of men and women in a family, community, and society. So it is conventional that we have some hierarchies. So that these hierarchies are determined by the society and by the people also. So therefore, in our general society, we see that the men occupy the higher position and women are getting the lower position. So these hierarchies, the conventions and hierarchies of on the status of men and women, whether it may be in the family or whether it may be the community and society. So these things, the hierarchies are studied by gender studies. Okay. So then The gender studies also study the differences between men and women based on age, then wealth, then ethnic background, and the other factors also. So we see that we have some differences on the basis of age, then we have some different characteristics on the basis of age, then wealth also, then ethnic background, we have different types of ethnic background, then other factors also hamper in the different characteristics of man and women. So therefore, these gender studies will focus on the differences that exist due to the age, wealth, economic, ethnic background, and the other factors. So it will focus all these elements, all these factors. Then the gender studies also focuses on the shifting of gender roles due to the impact of socioeconomic and technical trends. So we see that society is not static, isn't it? So it is changed with the time, it is changed with the different social changes, then technical changes. So there are economic changes. So we see that society is changing, and the culture and gender roles are also changing. Okay, so how the gender roles effect on the behavior of the people, their social life, their family life. So these things, how the socio-economic and technical factors influence the gender roles and how they impact on the life of the people. So these things are studied by gender studies. So gender studies always focus on these kind of these functions and these factors also. Okay, so after discussing these gender studies and the concept of gender, so it is very important that nowadays we should promote gender equality. Okay, so gender equality doesn't mean that they consider that men and women are same. So we have biological differences, but the gender studies focuses on the opportunities, the equal opportunities of men and women on the resources, on the life sciences, on the different property and different things. We should have equal respect of both the genders in using the resources as well as life opportunities. Okay, then we can build a gender equal society in our country or nation. So gender equality depends on the equal opportunities of both men and women. So gender equality always help in the development of the democracy also. So it will also, when the gender is equal, so it will also help in our human development of our human resources, because the women constitute half of the population of our country. So therefore, when the women are empowered, the women are equal with the man, so then the whole situation will be same. Then our democracy will develop, and we can also develop the human resources of our country. So therefore, gender equality is the utmost importance at present, as well as future also. Then let's come to the definition of culture. So when we want to define culture, so culture, I want to say that culture is a big concept. So it includes different things. Okay, so culture cannot without knowing the different aspects of culture. So it is very difficult to understand the proper meaning of culture. So culture, actually, what is culture? So culture, we can say that culture can be defined as the system of knowledge shared by a relatively large group of people. So it is the system of knowledge. So this system of knowledge is going on. So one generation transmits this system to the next generation. So likewise, our cultural concept is transmitted from one generation to another generation. So culture is the system of knowledge. So that system may be the traditional system of knowledge. That system may be the philosophical knowledge. So it may be the different kinds of knowledge. So knowledge has no boundary. So therefore, culture cannot be confined in one particular aspect. So it is a system of knowledge shared by a relatively large group of people. So these people may be in a particular community or they may be in a particular society also, or they may be in a particular nation also. So likewise, we have Indian culture. So Indian culture, we have lots of system of knowledge included in our culture. So therefore, just we can say that culture is a system of knowledge that is shared by relatively large group of people, and it becomes the traditional culture of a particular group of people. So when some people engage in the different cultural activities, transmitting the different system of knowledge, so it becomes the identity of that particular people of that particular area also. So therefore, it is a system of knowledge shared by a large group of people. So culture is also the important concept in our social science. Why it is important? Because culture, without knowing culture, it is difficult to understand our social science. So it is the finest achievement of a society. So when we try to understand a particular society, so we must know the cultural background of a particular society. And the culture, derivative, when we go to the derivative meaning of culture, so it comes from the Latin word cultura, which means harvesting the plot of land or to cultivate. So that means the culture is a particular system of knowledge and particular way of behavior. We can say the way of behavior of a particular people residing in a particular place, and they exchange and they transmit that traditions from them to the next generation through different ways. It may be the traditional ways, or it may be the in modern ways. So to make it more clear, the concept of culture, so we should go through the definitions given by Taylor. So I just want to know, I would like to say that there are different types of definitions on culture. So sociologists and anthropologists gave us different definition on culture, but this definition, according to me, so this definition given by Taylor is the best definition because it includes the complete aspect of culture. So when you go through this definition, so you will make it more clear that what culture is. So culture, according to Taylor, culture is that complex whole which includes knowledge, it includes the belief, it includes the art, morals, law, customs, and any other capabilities acquired by man as a member of the society. So it is very clear. So here we see that it is a complex whole. He considered that culture is a complex whole which includes different kinds of knowledge. It may be the traditional knowledge, or it may be the different knowledge system, ancient knowledge system. So it includes the belief system. So belief system is always associated with a particular society. So therefore it includes the belief system. Belief system may be the traditional belief, or it may be the different types of belief, religious belief, or it may be the different types of belief. Art, the different forms of art, the art, music, etc., dance, etc. Then moral, so it includes the different principles that are made by the society for different purposes, morals and laws and customs. So therefore we can say that it's a way of life. So when we make it more clear, so according to going through this definition, so we can say that culture is the way of life of the people that is shared from one generation to another generation. So that is culture. So culture, here I would like to say that culture can be classified in two categories. One is the material culture and the other is the non-material culture. So the material culture always related with the material things like the house, the buildings, the cars, the different monuments. So it includes the material things, okay? And non-material culture is always related with the value system, the ideas, the beliefs, the different types of ways of behavior. So that is called non-material culture. So there is a vast change in the changing pattern of this material and non-material culture. So material culture always change very fast, and non-material culture change gradually. So therefore there is a differences between the material and non-material culture. So this thing I will discuss in my later part of this session. So now you just remember that culture is nothing but it's a way of life of the particular people residing in a particular area or particular place, or we can say that it's a system of knowledge that can be transmitted from one generation to another. So hope you are understand this concept of culture. Now going through this definition, we can say that culture refers to the ideas, meaning and knowledge that the people share both consciously and unconsciously. So that is very important, because I already told you that culture is a way of life of the people. So this way of life, we consciously we exchange thoughts and feelings with the other, and we unconsciously exchange the thoughts and feelings with the people residing in the society. So consciously, when we try to exchange the thought with the people, so this is done by some formal institutions, so like the school, colleges and universities. So we consciously transmit the knowledge and ideas or knowledge from one generation to another generation, and in other sense we unconsciously also transmit it to the next generation. For example, like folk tales, like folk stories. So these are generally we done in home to the little children. So likewise we unconsciously exchange the different traditional belief system to the people of our society. So therefore it may be conscious and unconscious. And now we will discuss the different factors or the elements of culture. So when I talk about the elements or the factors of culture, so the first thing is the symbols, then a language, then norms, then values, and the artifacts. Okay, so these are the elements of culture and these are the factors of culture. So symbols. So what is symbol? Symbols generally comes under the non-verbal, non-verbal communication system. Okay, so symbols are generally used in communication. So without symbol we can't communicate the people. So therefore symbols comes under the non-communication system, and communication system may be of two types. One is the verbal communication and the other is non-verbal communication. So under the category of non-verbal communication, symbols plays a very important role. So symbols is non-verbal, and after the research studies done on the communication system, the researchers found that the symbols we exchange our thoughts and we do our daily activities through the 70% of our daily activities we done by non-verbal way, that is the signs and symbols. So it is clear that 70% of our daily activities, daily communication we done by non-verbal way through the signs and symbols. Okay, so therefore culture, therefore when we talk about symbols, so symbols present a very important role in culture. So therefore symbols are important element of culture. Then the language. So language is the basis of all communication. So without language, we can't express our thoughts, we can't express our ideas, etc. So therefore, language makes effective social interactions also, and it influences how people conceive of concept and object also. So when you conceive a particular concept or object, so you must have to be expressed through the language. So language makes the effective social interaction. So without social interaction, communication cannot happen. So therefore, it plays a very important role in our daily life and the way of behavior of the people. Then we come to the next point, that is norms. Okay, so norms also present a very important role in the cultural behavior also. So norms, what is norms? So we should know norms. Norms is the base. Norms is the standard that is determined by a particular society or a culture. Okay, so norms are determined on the basis of the society's different roles and different aspects. So these are determined by the society for the peace and tranquility of the society. So these are norms, are the standard. We always try to obey these norms. Okay. Then the values. So I already told you that value system plays a very important role in culture. So without value system, the culture is meaningless. So culture, value system, value system always helps in developing our mindset. So values are determined by the mind and it is determined by our judgment. So values are always determined by the judgment of an individual's mind. So therefore, value system plays a very important role in our culture. Then the artifacts. So artifacts are the objects that is always for the cultural and historical interest. So when, for example, the caves, then the coins of different periods. So that tells us how the people they live in the past, So likewise, so artifacts tells us different things about the culture, about the past culture, about the way of people they enjoyed, the different way of behavior of a particular age. So likewise, these are the artifacts reveal the different cultural background of our past and the particular society also. So these are considered to be the element of our culture. Then the next point is we'll discuss the relationship between gender and culture. So gender and culture is a very important aspect of our social science. So without, and these are very intimately related to each other. So they are considered to be the two sides of the same coin. So without gender, it is impossible to understand culture, and culture without knowing culture, gender is meaningless. So therefore, gender and culture is intimately related to each other, and gender roles are always determined by the culture. I already told you that what is the relationship? That means the gender roles that we play in different situations. So these are always determined by the culture of the society. A particular culture or a particular time of the people, a particular society. So they determine the gender roles. So these gender roles can be modified by that particular society also for their different benefits and upliftment. So therefore, know the gender roles and how they impact on the cultural processes. So therefore, gender roles are determined by the culture and the society. Then gender identities and gender relations are very important aspect of culture. So when we study a culture of a particular society, we must see what type of gender identities they have and what type of gender relations that exist in a particular cultural society, and how they influence on the behavior pattern of the people and how they impact on their behaviors also. So therefore, they mold the way we live in our daily life. So gender identities and gender relations are determined by the culture of the society. So therefore, we can say that there is a close relationship between gender and culture. So without knowing gender, the gender roles, the gender identities, so it is very impossible to understand properly a cultural life of the people, as well as the culture always influence on the gender identities, gender roles. So therefore, we see that various gender roles are different in different societies. For example, we can say that generally the gender roles are the status of the male person are higher than the women. In a patriarchal society, we see that the social decisions, the decisions of the family, as well as the family business, and all these things are controlled by the male member. But in matriarchal society, like we can say that Khasi tribe in Meghalaya. So in Meghalaya, the female member, the women folk, they control the whole household as well as societal business, and they took the decisions on the important matters of the family as well as in the society also. So therefore, culture to culture, we see the different gender roles. Gender roles varies from culture to culture. So therefore, there is a close relationship between gender and culture. So culture shape the gender roles, and gender roles can be modified on the basis of the cultural situation or cultural purpose. Okay, so these are the relationship that we discussed in gender and culture. Now we should go through the gender specific roles, gender specific educational scenario in India and its impact on the society. So that means how the gender specific roles in educational scenario are changed in our society from ancient to the modern age. So in this educational scenario, I would like to mention that I will discuss with you on the gender specific educational scenario of ancient times and how they change, and what are the position of educational scenario of our gender specific scenario at present in our society. So firstly, I would like to say that education plays a very important role in our cultural development. Okay, so it plays a very important role and cultural development of both the genders of the society and country at large. So education is the process, it is a process of development. So it is a process of developing balanced personality. So therefore, to make a balanced gender roles, we need the help of education. So without education, we can't develop the gender equality in our society. So therefore, for the development of the society, for development of our nation, for development of our democratic nation, so we have to give more importance on our education system. So without education, women empowerment will not be possible. So therefore, gender equality is one of the important aspect of our cultural life, and it can be achieved only through our education system. Okay, so therefore our United Nations declared that gender equality and empowerment of women are among the top development goals of United Nations. So they realized the importance of gender equality and empowerment of education. So therefore, through education, they try to achieve the gender equality and empowerment of women. So among the top development goals of United Nations, so gender equality and gender equality of empowerment of women will not be possible without education. How the gender roles are played in the ancient past. We see that the ancient India enjoyed a very good gender scenario. So they enjoyed a very gender-based society in ancient India, like the medieval period. Okay, so when we talk about the Vedic age period, so in Vedic age we see that the women enjoyed a very high status in the society. So they were accorded high respect in the Vedic age, in the Vedic society. So they have equal status with the male member. So they perform different activities like religious activities, like household activities, social and economic activities. They performed with the male member of the society. So at the Vedic age, there were no distinction among the gender roles among the male and female. Both the genders, they work for the society, they work for the household, they work for the different upliftment of the society. So women were accorded high respect in the Vedic society. So in Vedic period, the women also conferred Upanayana ceremony. So we know that in Vedic age, the education was performed after the Upanayana ceremony. So in girls also, they also conferred Upanayana ceremony. That means the girls also enjoyed a particular privilege in the Vedic society. So some of the legendary women that contributed lot more for the literature, for the religious and philosophical side. So we can cite some examples of then Lopamudra, then Maitreyi, then Upala, then Bhusa, then Vishwavara. So these are some of the names. They contributed a lot more for the development of the literature, then philosophy, then religious functions. So they contributed a lot more for the upliftment of the society. So therefore, we can say that in Vedic age, the society was enjoying the balanced gender roles and gender equality was present in the Vedic society. So, and they also enjoyed the equal educational right in the Vedic age. But in post-Vedic period, the women were deprived of social and religious rights. So they are considered to be the, so we see that in a society there are high waves and low waves. Sometimes it is high waves and sometimes it is low waves. So here in the post-Vedic period, we see that the women enjoyed a lesser social status than the Vedic period. So they were deprived of different social and religious rights. That means the patriarchal society start at that period also in the post-Vedic period. But these patriarchal societies inflicted a heavy blow on the equal rights of women, and they were pushed to a lower position in the society at once. So that is because of the patriarchal identities of this male and female. So the male member control the women, and women were deprived of the different rights like social rights and educational rights and religious rights at the post-Vedic period. But during the Upanishadic period, the status of women again got improved. So they bestowed the social and educational rights equal to men. So likewise in Upanishadic period, so it has been seen that the women enjoyed the earlier status in the society. So they were enjoyed the different social rights, then educational rights, then different religious rights also. They performed the different activities which equal to men. So why this was happened? Because in Upanishadic period that was happened due to the gender-based to the non-gendered Upanishadic philosophy. So Upanishadic philosophy is non-gendered. So that is because of the non-gender philosophy of Upanishadic period. So the gender roles are not specifically defined in the Upanishadic period. So both the genders enjoyed the equal rights, whether it may be the educational, household, the family, and the society also. We can cite the example of Gargi. So Gargi was a legendary woman who contributed lot more for the literature, for the Vedic literature in the Upanishadic period. So she contributed lot more things in the at that period, Upanishadic period. Then we come to the Buddhist period. So Buddhist period. So I already I want to mention you that Buddha himself, despite of letting women in the monastery, so Buddha was not in favor of women education. So in the former stage, so Buddha was not regarded women. So Buddha was not regarded high status to the women, and Buddha himself, despite the letting women in the monastery. So it is his one disciple whose name was Anand. So on the request of Anand, he admitted 500 women to the monasteries, Buddhist monasteries, with high restrictions. So that means that formerly Buddha didn't want to enter women in the monasteries, but with his earnest request of one of his disciple Anand, so he let women entered in the monasteries. 500 women were admitted in the monasteries, and this is done with strict restriction. So so we can say that in Buddhist period also, the women were not enjoyed the full status like the Vedic period. But due to some of the restrictions, some women did lots of work, they contributed lots of things for the Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist Buddhist religion also. So we can cite the name of Sanghamitra. So she was the sister of Ashoka, and she went to Sri Lanka, and she was engaged in religious activities. She spread the Buddhism in the Sri Lanka, and she contributed a lot more things for the religious purpose of Buddhism. So we can cite her name also. Then in Muslim period, after the Buddhist period, so Muslim invaders took the charge of the country, and in Muslim period we see that women position was not high. So women education during the Muslim period was not at all satisfactory. So we can say that at that period the women were not allowed to attend the maktabs and madrasas like male students. Therefore, the women were deprived of educational rights. So they were deprived of the social and religious rights also. So therefore, in Muslim period, the women's position was very low position. They have low position in the Muslim period, and there was no universal system of education prevalent in the Muslim period also. That means the general education was not given to the women. So therefore, no universal education was present. But during the period of East India Company, so when East India Company came to India, so at that period, under the rule of Lord William Bentinck and Lord Dalhousie, so they gave more importance on the women education and women upliftment. So they, in their rule, so they established lots of schools for the women. So women were allowed to enter in the schools, and they were encouraged to take education. Okay, but in British Crown, when the British Crown came to India, took the rule over India in 1857. So women education scenario was just improved. So in 1882, there were 1,27,000 girls began to receive educational benefits. So that is very that is at that period it was very higher, and that is because of the initiative taken by the missionaries. The missionaries took the initiative of education, and they established numbers of schools. They transmit the knowledge from rural to the urban sides of India. So they visited different rural places in India, and they spread the knowledge to the Indian people. So at that people, educational institution rose up to 25,000. So we see that in 1882 there is a slight improvement seen in the education scenario. In the beginning of the 20th century, when the Lord Clare Curzon took the charge, so women education was given much importance. So he appointed capable women teachers in the schools, and these are considered as model high schools. Model girls schools for the women, and the provision of liberal grants in aid also given to them. That means under the leadership of Lord Curzon, so he established lots of schools and colleges for the women, and women teachers were also appointed in those schools and colleges, and they were given some grants also. Grants means the scholarship also, and some model schools were also established, and these are considered to be the model because the other schools will follow their rules and regulations and their activities. By 1947, the number of different types of school for women India rose to the 17,485. Women's schools rose up to the 17,485, besides increase in the colleges university. So in 1947, though it is very slow, but the women education was given more importance in 1947. So after the independence, so our leaders realized that education is the only medium through which we develop our democracy. So through which we develop our independent India. So therefore, education was progressed in leaps and bounds. Women education was progressed in leaps and bounds after independence, and therefore various commissions and various commissions and committees were also established for the upliftment of the women. So different 5-year plans also allotted huge amounts of money for the women education. Then the numerous recommendations were given by the different committees, like we can say that different committees like Durgabhai Deshmukh Committee in 1958. So after independence, 1958, Durgabhai Deshmukh Committee was established, and they recommended different suggestions for the improvement of the women. Then Hansa Mehta Committee that was established in 1962. So in Hansa Mehta Committee also gave different suggestions for the improvement of the women and the women empowerment. Then Bhakta Vatsalam Committee was also established. So likewise, different committees and commissions were established for the women also. And to preserve the rights of the women, so after independence, lots of effort were taken. National Women Commission was set up, and which look after the different matters of women rights and privileges. Then the State Women Commission was also established. Then different reservation of seats for the local government also. Also the seats for the women also reserved for the local government. Then National Plan of Action for the girl child was also taken for the upliftment of the women or women empowerment. Then the national policy also give more importance on the women empowerment. So they generally take different plans for the upliftment of the women. So likewise, women education was given more importance in post-independence period. So now we have 30% reservation in local government, local self-government, and 33% seats reserved for the Lok Sabha, and for the upliftment of the economically upliftment of the women. So we have the government also encourages the self-help group. So these self-help group are economically independent group, and they contribute for themselves and for the society also. And the maternity leave for the women. So earlier it was 90 days, but now it is increased to the 135 days. So likewise, we see that when the education is given more importance to the women, so women can understand their rights and privileges, they can understand their role, they can understand their capacities and capabilities. So they can decide their different. They can control the different matters, different important matters also. Likewise, so when women education will be given, so it will increase the human resources of the country, and it will increase in all the aspects like social, economic, and political aspects. So we can say that women education is the only thing for the upliftment of the women. Now we will discuss the literacy rate of India from 1951 to 2011. We see that the literacy rate in 1951, that was very little. That is, total literacy was 18.33, and women constitute only 8.86%. So that is very little. And when we see the decadal growth of the literacy rate, it was just increased a little bit. In 1961, that was to 28.3%, 30%. Then women literacy rate was 15.35%. So that is very little. So out of 100, only 15 women are literate. But when we see the literacy rate, it is just increasing. That is, in 2011, we see that the total literacy percentage is 74.04%, and the women literacy percentage is 65.46. It is still very little in compared with the developed countries. So when we talk about the developed countries like Scandinavian countries, so they are very literate, like Sweden, Norway, Finland. So they are very literate, and they contributed a lot more things for the upliftment of the society and the economy also. So therefore, the literacy rate should be increased in India, and lots of efforts are taken by the government also. Now girls education is free, so lots of efforts are taken, but we hope for the best that we should also increase the literacy rate of our country. Then we have women empowerment, then we have balanced gender equality. Then we will discuss the different programs and policies taken by the government for the women empowerment and women education, and different policies and programs are taken for the atrocities related to feminine gender. So now we see that the Hindu Marriage Act was established in 1955 for the different to remove the different drawbacks of Hindu marriage. Then likewise the Special Marriage Act, Hindu Sessional Act. So these are some of the acts that are taken, taking place, that are established for the development of women. So now the commission of Sati was also taken in 1987. Then now the Supreme Court judgment was on daughters having equal rights on parental property. That was the latest work done by our government for the equal rights and equal rights on the parental property. So we can also say that for the upliftment of the women, so different constitution provisions are there. We have Article 14, 15 and 16 and 39, 42 and 46 and 47, Article 47, Article 51, then Article 243, etc. All these articles are deals with the women upliftment and women's protection. So in all these articles of our constitution will give more important these articles of the constitution provisions are given for the women only. So that means our constitution gave more importance on our women upliftment and women protection. Then legal provisions. So we have some legal provisions are there. For example, the section 372 IPC, so it is for rape. Then section 363 to 373 for the kidnapping. Then the different purposes that are happening for the women. So that is for the legal purpose. Then the different section 302 to 304. These are taken for the dowry cases. That is section 498 for the physical and mental torture. These are all sections, legal provisions that are taken for the women upliftment and for gender equality. So these are the programs and policies taken for gender equality in our society. Then some special initiatives are also taken by the government. So we can say the National Commission of Women. So Women Commission mainly deals with the women rights and privileges. So therefore Women Commission also deals with the various matters of women. So we can say that National Women Commission, then reservation of seats for the local self-government, then the National Plan of Action for the Girl Child, then the National Policy of Empowerment of Women. So all these programs are mainly meant for the women empowerment, women upliftment and the women education also. So that is when the women will be educated, they will understand their rights and privileges, and then the gender equality will happen in our country. Now we discuss some of the matters of gender, traditions and customs. So we say that gender, tradition and customs are important aspect of our culture. So without knowing these gender, traditions and customs, it is impossible to understand our total Indian culture and total social sciences. So therefore, I just want to mention that I just briefly mention what is customs, traditions and their relationship. So a traditional and widely accepted way of behavior generally known as customs, and these customs are traditionally transmitted from one generation to another generation. Then these customs, when transmitted generation to generation, it becomes the tradition. So like we have the Assamese tradition, like we have Gujarati tradition. So likewise, we have different kinds of traditions. Then traditions and culture emerge from the social, political, and economic issues and contexts. So this is without gender roles and traditions and customs. So it is impossible to understand the cultural roles and the way of behavior of a particular society. So traditional cultural practices and beliefs that reflect the values and beliefs held by the members of a community for periods often spanning generations. And then the role of faith of the community is very important to bring change in the social norms and traditions. So I already told you that social norms. So these are the value system and these are the standards generally determined by the society for a particular society and particular cultural society. So these faith of the community and these value system are changed society to society and culture to culture, and gender roles are also changed with that social norms and the social traditions. So I have prepared some slides on the northeastern states. So you know that northeastern states, earlier it was known as seven sister state. So we have different seven states, but now Sikkim is included. So we have Manipur, Arunachal, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Sikkim. So these are some of the 8 states which belong to northeastern state. So northeastern state is very famous for its craft and handlooms, and they are very famous for their traditional beliefs and customs also. We have different traditional beliefs and customs associated with our tradition. So now I would like to show you some slides depicting the different cultural traditions and handicraft made by the women. So they are the women of the northeastern states are very their role is very high and their status is very high, and they perform different activities like household, social, and different activities in hand in hand with the man. With the male counterpart also. So now I show you how the women are engaged in the different handloom and handicrafts in our northeastern states. So this is Manipur, and Manipur handloom and handicraft is famous, and it is done by the women also, women folk. So these are prepared. These are some of the bed sheets and pillow covers prepared by the women. So it is known as fanek. This is fanek prepared by cotton, and it is also made by silk also. It is very beautiful. And these are some mats and these are some trays prepared by the Manipuri women. So this is another state, that is Meghalaya. So Meghalaya is also known as Scotland of East. So it is very beautiful place, and women, the matriarchal society are visible in Meghalaya state. So Meghalaya's women's status is very high, and they took different decisions, and they also control the business of the family and the society in Meghalaya. So they prepare different looms, and they prepare different textiles and different garments. Also they prepare the wooden potteries. So these are women in the Meghalaya are they have very high status. So generally we see that Garo women, they are there, then Khasi women are there. So these are some of the tribes present in Meghalaya. So these Garo women is preparing some traditional garments, and these are the wooden potteries. These are prepared by both the genders. They prepare these wooden potteries. Then these are traditional garments of Meghalaya. So it is also called muka, and these are some traditional jewelries prepared by. These are very beautiful. These are prepared these are made by some beads. So beads. So these are very beautiful traditional jewelries. And we come to the Nagaland. So Naga women are also very expert in weaving also. So it is a custom of Nagaland is that all women must know the art of weaving. That means they should know the weaving according to their traditional belief, and they have 2 types of loom. One is Noyan loom and the other is peak loom. So Naga women is weaving in the weaving some traditional dress in their loom, and that is Naga shawl. Naga shawl is famous for it is very comfortable in winter season also, and it is nationwide. It is popular and it is famous in world over also. And this is weaving mat. These are weaving mats prepared by both. You see that in this picture, we see that both the genders are performing their duties in weaving the mats. So these are some wooden dresses and the mats. These are prepared by bamboo and wood. So these are very beautiful, and these are prepared in wooden vases and mats. And Tripura. The next we come to the Tripura. So Tripura handloom is famous, and handloom weaving is an important craft of Tripura. And Tripuri women in rural household, they prefer they prepare the risa and rinai. So these are some traditional dress prepared by Tripuri women. So in every household we see the looms available in the Tripuri house, and these are garments, traditional garments prepared by Tripuri women. So Tripura is also famous for making bamboo. So it is famous for making items from bamboo. So these are Durga Ma faces, some vessels prepared by bamboo, prepared through bamboo, and these are bamboo and cane craft. So these are very beautiful craft that is prepared by Tripuri women, and both the genders, they prepare this bamboo cane. So cane industry is famous in Tripura. So these are bases and these are bamboo canes available in Tripura. Then we come to the Arunachal. So Arunachal is also a very beautiful place. So it has many places to visit. So Arunachali women are also very cultured, and they perform different traditional customs, and they enjoy their gender roles in their society. So they also enjoy, so they perform different activities in the handloom and handicraft industry. So these are Arunachali dress. These are known as gale, and gale are prepared by the women. So these are traditional dresses and jewelries. So these jewelries are made from different beads. These are natural beads. They colored them, and they beautiful. They beautifully design these jewelries. And this is wooden craft of Arunachal. This is light lamps. This is prepared from wood. So these wood are traditionally present. These wood are their local woods, and they traditionally present this wooden craft. And these are some traditional symbols. These are traditional symbols prepared by the Arunachali women. Then the Mizoram. So these are loin loom and backstrap looms. It is famous for. It is very famous in Mizoram, and the main source of income of this state of the women from this loin loom and backstrap loom. So backstrap loom is available in all the places in the Mizoram. So Mizo women is always engaged with this backstrap looms. So the girl is preparing some garments. So it is also known as puan. The traditional name of Mizo garments is known as puan, and puan is also famous in Mizoram. Then these are traditional handicrafts. These are prepared from different bamboo and different wooden things. These are traditional rice urns, and these are traditional hats. So Assam is also famous for handloom. So we have Swalkusi. Swalkusi is a traditional village, and it is especially important for golden silk and muga. So muga is a so we have Assam has also bagged the GI tag, the geographical index tag in muga also. So these are muga. Gamusa is traditionally we present when we welcoming some people. So this is Mekla Sadar, that is muga dress. Muga is famous nationwide as well as in worldwide. So these are some traditional dresses wearing by the Karbi women. Then these are some bell metal handicrafts. These are bell metal handicrafts. These are many things are prepared from bell metal. So this is in bell metal we use generally the bronze and the tin. Then this is cane and bamboo handicrafts, and this is some musical instrument prepared from the different wood and bamboo also. Then this is traditional gamusa of Assam. This is traditional zapi. Then Citra Bhagavata illustration with Hangul title, that is traditional color we use in Citra Bhagavata painting. Then this is wooden one pot Reno, so it is famous for famous. Then Sikkim, so women's participation can be seen in wood carving, then Thanga painting, then cane and bamboo work also, preparation of lucky signs, then handmade paper making also. So we see that women are also engaged in carpet making, carpet and blanket making also, handloom weaving also. So these are some Sikkimese women engaged in some different activities. It is Thanga painting, then it is wooden mask, this is backstep loom, and this is the garment. Thank you very much.